Have you ever driven alone at night, only to look in your rear view mirror and see someone sitting in the back seat, someone who wasn't there a second ago? In the heart of Manila lies a street so infamous, so drenched in dread, that even taxi drivers avoid it after dark. This is the story of Balete Drive and the lady in white who haunts it. Balete Drive is a quiet, narrow road in New Manila, Quezon City. At a glance, it looks like any other residential street, but under the shadow of towering balete trees, a dark legend lingers. Named after the balete tree, considered in Filipino folklore to be a dwelling place for spirits and elementals, the street carries with it a supernatural weight. Locals whisper stories of strange figures crossing the road, mysterious cold spots, and the most famous tale of all, a woman dressed in white who appears in the back seat of passing cars. She doesn't speak, she doesn't scream, she just stares, empty-eyed, pale, and soaked in sorrow. No one knows exactly where she came from. Some say she was a young woman from the 1950s, assaulted and left for dead by a taxi driver on the very road she now haunts. Others believe she was a bride, killed in a tragic accident on the way to her wedding, her restless soul still searching for closure. And then there are the darker versions, tales of ritual sacrifice, abandoned lovers, and vengeful spirits attached to the balete trees themselves. But the most consistent image, a pale, long-haired woman in a flowing white dress. Stories of the lady in white began circulating as early as the 1950s. It started with taxi drivers, late-night taxi drivers who would pick up a quiet woman in white from the side of Balete Drive. She'd give an address, but halfway through the trip, she'd vanish, leaving the driver shaken and confused. Others reported the woman simply appearing in the back seat without warning. One driver said, "I looked in the mirror and she was just there. No sound, no movement, just her eyes watching me." In some versions, the taxi would crash. In others, the driver would abandon the cab completely, running for his life. Let's dive into real reports shared by witnesses, stories that were documented by local media and passed down for decades. The student's encounter in 1978, a student named Lourdes was walking home from a friend's house. It was already past 10 p.m., and Balete Drive was the only shortcut. I was walking fast because the street was so dark. The trees blocked the lamps. Then I heard footsteps, not mine. I turned, and no one was there. Moments later, she glanced to her left and saw a woman standing beneath a balete tree. She wasn't moving, just standing, in a white dress, staring at me. Her face was pale. I ran without looking back. The taxi ride that never ended. In 1992, a taxi driver named Mang Tony told a story on a radio program. I picked her up outside the cemetery. She looked like a normal lady, very quiet, gave me directions to Balete Drive. As they neared the street, Mang Tony asked a question. She didn't respond. I turned around, and no one was there, but the seat was still wet, like someone had just stepped out after being in the rain. He quit driving night shifts after that night. The vanishing hitchhiker in 2005. Two friends, Marco and Jem, were driving through Balete Drive late at night. Jem swore he saw someone wave from the side of the road. They pulled over to give her a ride. She got in the back. She never spoke, just sat silently. Then at the next corner, we asked where to drop her, and she was gone. Marco swerved the car in panic. Luckily, he didn't crash the car, but neither of them ever went down Balete Drive again. Paranormal investigations. Several groups have attempted to study the phenomenon. Paranormal investigators from the Philippines Ghost Society conducted a midnight stakeout in 2011. They set up infrared cameras, EMF detectors, and spirit boxes. Around 2:13 a.m., one camera caught a white mist moving across the street. The spirit box registered a woman's voice saying, "I'm here." One of the investigators, a skeptic at the time, reported feeling a cold hand grip his shoulder when no one was near him. Even skeptics left with more questions than answers. The lady in white became more than a ghost story. She became a national myth. Numerous Filipino horror films, documentaries, and books have featured her, turning Balete Drive into a paranormal hotspot. Students dare each other to visit at night. Paranormal tours included as a prime location. But for many locals, the fear is real. Some residents report electrical disturbances, animals behaving strangely, and even their children talking to an 8 in white who disappears before adults arrive. Of course, not everyone believes. Skeptics suggest the sightings are rooted in sleep-deprived drivers, suggestive folklore, or tricks of the eye in dim light. Psychologists argue that our brains are wired to see figures in the dark due to fear and expectation, a phenomenon called pareidolia. But how do you explain the physical signs? Wet seats, fingerprints on windshields, voices caught on audio recordings. Some spiritual leaders believe Balete Drive is cursed, not just haunted. The Balete trees themselves are said to house kapre, giants, tikbalangs, half-horse demons, and white ladies, depending on the local legend. There are also rumors that in the 1940s and 50s, violent crimes were committed in the area. Young women assaulted and murdered by men who were never caught. These restless souls, it said, cling to the place of their death, and every year, a new story surfaces. In January 2023, a rideshare driver named Ellie shared her terrifying story on TikTok. It was 3 a.m. I was heading home when I saw a woman waving at me. She looked desperate, so I pulled over. Ellie let her in. I started driving and made small talk. She didn't respond. I looked at the mirror and her eyes were bleeding. Panicked, Ellie turned to check. The woman was gone. The back door was still locked. She drove home crying and deleted her driving app account the next day. Her video went viral. She wasn't the only one. Theories abound, but one thing is certain. The lady in white remains. Whether spirit, warning, or simply the embodiment of sorrow, she lingers. Some say she appears to the guilty, taxi drivers, cheaters, or abusers. Others say she's searching for her killer and won't stop until justice is served. But maybe she just doesn't know she's dead. So the next time you find yourself driving alone on a quiet street, especially one lined with balete trees, check your rearview mirror, because you might not be as alone as you think. And if you see a pale woman in white, don't ask questions. Don't talk. Just drive. Because some passengers are never really there. This has been a Truth is Terror original. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, have you ever seen her? Until next time, sleep well.